Owol ran away from her home, trying to get as far as possible. No one was chasing her, but she kept running without stopping. When she couldn't take another step, she sat down on the side of the road and cried.
No matter what, run far away, and with this, you'll be able to live without trouble.
Owol lost both her parents when she was young. She was a poor girl, and Mistress was kind enough to raise her.
Oh, your hands feel so good.
The mistress had been sick for years and couldn't leave the house. Owol often told the mistress stories about what was happening in the village, and they spent time together like mother and daughter.
Is there anything new in the village?
Yes, I heard Mr. Kim's eldest son is getting married.
Really? That old bachelor is finally getting married?
Yes, it's great. Also, Mrs. Jinchin had another daughter.
Wasn't her last baby a daughter too?
Yes, but the fortune teller said it would be a boy this time. He was totally wrong.
The mistress had only quiet and serious sons, so she loved Owol like her own daughter. Owol was able to grow up happily in their house. The mistress was kind and treated everyone with respect. But her husband, Lord, was different. Lord was mean and cruel. When he was in a bad mood, he would hit the servants and be nasty to them. The only reason people in the village still respected the family was because of the mistress, who took care of everyone. Owol was once a plain girl, but as she grew older, her skin became fair, and she turned into a beautiful young woman. Because of this, Lord, who never noticed her before, began to smile at her in a strange way. One day, while Owol was cleaning, something happened. Owol was scrubbing the floor when Lord suddenly grabbed her from behind.
No one will care if I touch a slave like you. Who knows? Maybe you'll become my concubine and live a better life.
Owol was so shocked that she couldn't even scream. She tried to escape his grip. She used all her strength to push him away and ran out of the room. Owol ran straight to where Mistress was. As soon as she entered the room, Owol fell to the ground and started crying.
Mistress!
What's wrong? What happened?
Mistress!
Owol tearfully explained what had happened.
You did nothing wrong. Lord must be losing his mind. Even old men still want women as long as they can lift a spoon. It's disgusting.
I'm okay, but if I don't obey Lord's orders, he will punish me. But if I do what he says, I'll be betraying your kindness. I don't think I can live with that. I'd rather die.
The mistress was touched by Owol's loyalty. That night, after everyone was asleep, Mistress took Owol out of the house. She handed her a bundle of jewelry and clothes.
I planned to give this to you when you got married, but I can't let my husband hurt you. Take this and run far away. You can sell these and live well.
Mistress, I don't want to leave. What if he finds out?
In the morning, I'll say I sent you on an errand. You need to leave before he notices. Understand?
And so Owol ran away from the house.
Mistress!
Owol felt miserable. She had no family and no one to rely on.
What's the point of living like this? I might as well.
She started walking slowly toward the river, as if in a daze. Just then, a man came running toward her. The man had noticed a young woman wandering near the river at dawn, and he felt something was wrong, so he rushed over.
Excuse me! Why is a young woman like you walking near the river so early in the morning?
I have no way to live. It would be better if I drowned in the river.
The man looked at Owol with pity and spoke softly.
You're young and beautiful. No matter how hard life is, isn't living better than dying? I haven't married yet, and I don't have anyone either. Why don't you live with me?
Owol looked at him. He seemed strong and dependable, with a good appearance. She didn't know where he was from or who he was, but she felt like it was fate. So Owol decided to go with him, and they became husband and wife. Years passed, and the mistress who had sent Owol away died with a heavy heart. After that, the Lord's household began to decline. Not long after, Lord died, and soon after, his son also passed away. In the end, only Youngie, the grandson of. But the family had been poor for a long time, and Youngie was living a miserable life. Even though he was still a noble, he couldn't take any job, so he struggled to survive each day. Youngie thought to himself,
"That's right. I remember hearing that our family had many slaves. There must be a record of them somewhere. If I find it, I can track them down, and they'll have to support me."
At that time, slaves were owned by their masters, and the masters kept the records. As long as the record existed, the slaves couldn't escape their master's control. Even if a slave left the master's house, they still had to pay yearly tributes. If they didn't, the master could sell them to someone else. With this in mind, Youngie smiled and found the records of the family slaves. He confidently went to the village where the slaves lived, carrying the records with him. When he arrived, he showed the records to the slaves with pride.
"Do you know what this is? This is proof that you are our family's slaves. My grandmother was kind enough to let you live comfortably until now. But I'm struggling to survive, so from now on, you'll have to pay tributes to me."
The slaves reluctantly agreed, but inside they were angry. They were barely getting by, and now the master's grandson had come to take more from them. They gathered together after sending Youngie to rest and started talking.
Are we really going to give him tributes?
If the master demands it, we have to give it.
We can barely feed ourselves. What are we supposed to give him?
Exactly. We don't have anything to give him.
Complaining won't help us.
What do you mean?
Let's kill him tonight. If we take care of him here, no one will ever know.
The group was quiet for a moment, but then they all agreed. Meanwhile, Youngie had fallen asleep after dinner, exhausted from his journey. He woke up in the middle of the night, thirsty. As he reached for some water, he heard footsteps and looked through a crack in the door. He saw the slaves creeping toward his room with knives and axes. Youngie was terrified. He quickly opened a small window and slipped out. When the slaves realized Youngie had escaped, they chased after him. Youngie ran for his life. He ran as fast as he could, and when he finally looked back, the slaves had stopped chasing him. But Youngie was so exhausted that he collapsed on the spot. At that moment, a wealthy woman and her servant were walking by, heading to the temple for prayers. They found Youngie lying on the ground. The woman told her servant to take the man to their house and take care of him.
Are you feeling better now?
Youngie sighed in relief, realizing these people weren't trying to harm him. He told the servant what had happened.
You've been through a lot. Please wait here. I'll tell the mistress.
The servant went to the mistress and explained what had happened to Youngie. After hearing the story, the mistress told the servant to bring Youngie to her. When Youngie entered the room, the mistress suddenly stood up and guided him to the seat of honor.
"Please, young master, accept my respect."
Huh? Why are you treating me like this?
You may not remember me, but I grew up in your family's household. Your grandmother took me in and raised me with kindness. I owe everything to her. I left my hometown long ago, but now I've met you again.
The wealthy woman was Owol, the girl who had escaped many years ago. Owol had married the man she met by the river, and with the treasure given to her by the mistress, she had worked hard and become a wealthy woman. She had raised her children well, and they were all handsome and smart, admired by the villagers. Even though Owol was now a rich and respected lady, she often thought of the mistress and never forgot the kindness shown to her. When she met the mistress's grandson, she was overjoyed. Owol called her children and servants and said, "This man is the grandson of the mistress I once served. You must all treat him with the same respect I do." Owol treated Youngie with the best food and took care of him with all her heart. A month passed, and one night, Owol was walking past her son's room. She overheard them talking.
Brother, are we really going to let this man, Youngie, act like our master?
What can we do? Mother told us to treat him well. Do you really think he would do that?
The second brother is right. This man holds our fate in his hands.
To Owol's sons, Youngie was a problem. They couldn't disobey their mother, but they didn't like him. Owol started to worry that her sons might do something bad. One day, Youngie came to Owol.
Thank you for your kindness. I think it's time for me to go home.
Stay a few more days.
Her sons were nearby, so Owol said this. But later that night, she went to Youngie's room to talk in private.
Young master, haven't you noticed my sons don't feel comfortable with you here? They're listening to me now, but I can't predict what they might do. If you travel alone, something bad might happen again.
So what should I do?
I have an idea. I have a daughter who hasn't married yet. Why don't you marry her?
Youngie frowned and hesitated to answer.
Even though I'm poor now, I'm still from a noble family. How can I marry a slave's daughter? Young master, I'm not asking you to marry her for status. I just want to repay my mistress's kindness by keeping you safe. But it seems you don't understand me.
Hearing this, Youngie felt ashamed. Even though Owol could have married her daughter into a better family, she was offering her to him, a man with nothing. How could he doubt her intentions? So Youngie agreed to the marriage. The next day, Owol called her children and told them she would marry her daughter to Youngie, and they began preparing for the wedding. Her sons obeyed without question, preparing the wedding chamber and the dowry. After the wedding, Owol told her sons,
Make sure Youngie and your sister travel comfortably. Eldest son, you and your brother will escort them safely to their home. When you return, bring me a letter from Youngie to let me know they arrived safely.
And so Youngie was able to marry and return home safely. After that, Owol sent him gifts of money and grain every year, making sure he lived comfortably.